son, and I thought, oh, I should go live. I didn't go live yesterday, and I've got it now. We're on day 11 of my iteration. I thought, and the key is to go live sort of compulsively, like without thinking about it too much. So I really haven't thought about it. I thought I'll just switch it on while I'm driving. And I've got Ojay in the car with me. Hey, boy. So, he's like, he's just, I don't know if he's directing, he's just sitting here. So, I'm driving. And I'm thinking, I've got, what's the time? It's about 7:15. I'll go home. I'll boil some eggs. And I'll have an boiled egg. This is a boiled egg with, I'm going to just tell you, a bit of anchovy. It's really good with anchovy and a seed cracker. And I'll have two of those eggs, okay? Because then I have to go to gym at about 9 o'clock with my niece, who just is really good at gym and scares the hell out of me. And I want to please her. I want her to be happy with my performance at the gym. So I have to now kind of get myself ready, and I'm excited to do it, and terrified at the same time. Not terrified, a bit terrified. Okay, I'm a bit terrified because it's she doesn't let me down. She doesn't let me get away with anything. I've got to push myself, and that's good. I'm very happy to do that because it's funny. Like I'm now 53 years old, and my kids are a little bit bigger, and I thought. Like about 5-6 years, that my days of kind of really exerting myself physically it must be over. I mean, I'm an old man now, and I realized, there's a bit of gas left in the tank, so to speak. Or maybe I'm just getting started. Like maybe it's only just beginning now. So here we go. So I'm driving through these old Randwick streets, and talking to my device, and let's think now. So I've got the gym, but I've got like a little bit of an hour, and so I should. What work I'm going to do today? What have I got planned in the studio? Do I have anything planned in the studio today? What can I tell you? No, I don't really have anything planned in the studio. But that doesn't matter because my best situation to be in the studio is pretty much like what I'm doing here, is to have no plan, to go into the space, and literally, at its best, a kind of a flow happens. A flow, and you just encounter things as you move around the studio a little bit. Oh yeah, I'm working on that. And then you snag into something else, and then you find yourself working on that. And it's not always an easy state to be in, but that is how I like to go into the studio. It's great if I'm specifically working on a drawing that is consuming me and that I have to go to it all the time to resolve it, to finish it, to work on it. But I actually have got like one painting in the studio right now, which is so this is the weird, let's call it the interzone of a drawing or a painting. Like a lot of my work is quite processive in that if I start on it, I know exactly what I have to do in terms of the process. It's very processive. It's iterate, and my favorite word, if it's not known to you yet, it should be becoming clear, is that I love iteration, because that's the fundamental basis of evolution, is that there's a repetitive act, but every repeat, there's a little bit of feedback with what happened before. So there's evolution. It's not just like thoughtless repeating. It's just literally the system. Does it learn? Well, it's affected by what happened previously. So it's not, the trajectory is not predetermined. Of course, if you are a Laplacian physicist, then it is predetermined, because everything is determinate from the moment of that first motion in the universe of things. The path was set and it was done. Right? That's the other, actually, but for some reason it doesn't feel like that on a day-to-day basis. Like I don't know what's exactly is going to happen next. So there's a weird kind of paradox maybe, or something going on over here, but doesn't, and that's fine. I'm kind of totally fine with paradoxes all over the place. But the point is A lot of my drawings are iterative that way, so I at least know the direction I have to go in, even if I can't predict the outcome. It's a kind of interesting thing. Evolution is going to happen, but you don't know which direction. You know kind of the process. The process is quite specific, but the outcome is incredibly unpredictable. All right, so that's the difference between something that's teleological versus something that's proper, like us evolving in a direction that's unpredictable, unknowable. Teleological, like my toaster, that evolved in some warehouse, in some factory somewhere, where the team of toaster experts had a plan, and they acted on that plan, and they resulted in this fantastic thing, which is a toaster. Adam, if you ever watch this, Adam always says to me, at what point are you going to introduce the concept of the toaster? And I introduced it this time within 5 minutes of switching this thing onto live. So that's not too bad. Right, where am I going with this? So I'm working on a drawing in the studio. It's funny how things work, and because this is a different kind of drawing. So I'll tell you the whole process. All right, I'll tell you the whole process because maybe it's illuminating. So initially, I had this. Really, the whole process. I had this many years ago. I did a drawing, which I was happy with, and I exhibited that drawing. I remember it was in a gallery in Redfern. And then a couple of years later, I looked at that drawing. I think, I don't like this at all. I'm going to paint over it. All right. That doesn't always happen. Some of my works I feel stand up, like they hold themselves together, but some definitely don't. And hopefully as I become more experienced in this life, in this trajectory that I'm on, I'll know better which of my works are successful and which are not. So that's let's see what that is. But that is something that should happen. But anyway, this one I decided was not successful, and I painted over it. And then during one of the early iterations of this phenomenon, Ojay, look in the camera here, boy. Look. Early in the trajectory of this phenomenon, which we call the live iterations, I thought, I need to build an audience, right? So what I did was I thought I'd just literally build one and paint the audience, right? I just did a painting of an audience member, and that was fantastic. And then I had a little audience, and but then I, of course, that's a bit annoyed by that process, like of making my own audience. I thought it was a bit corny, so I just ignored it. I ignored my audience, and then I painted over her. She was a girl, actually. So I painted over my audience, and I didn't quite actually paint over. What I did is I just read this, and I mentioned this yesterday, actually. You saw part of the process. I've just arrived home, by the way, so I'm just going to go inside. I painted over. You saw that I put words in because I was inspired by the story of hi, how you? Relax, Ojay. Relax. Ojay's just seen his friend here. He gets very excited. So what was I talking about? So I'm trying to act casual. I'm trying to act normal because encountering neighbours I am, you see it. Pretending I'm on the phone because that's a better look than what I'm actually doing. Come Ojay. Oh, you don't have to come in here. So a bit of chaos. Transitions always are a bit chaotic. So I'm just going to clip you in here. Oh, there we go. Okay, good. I'm going to let Ojay in. You just wait there. Okay, boy. You want to go inside? Okay. Good boy. I'll get the heater for you. coming in? Yeah, put the heat on for you, boy. Yeah. Just give it a second. Just give it a second to toast up. There you go. Come, you can feel it. All right. Anyway, so what was I saying? Oh, yeah. So I was going to take you through this process, and it's actually a very interesting process because, yeah, it just is really an interesting thing that happens, you know. So I had this drawing. I started writing in it because I was inspired by the magpies that steal the anti-bird spikes, and I thought the initial impulse was, I'll just start writing that because it just feels like that should somehow be somewhere. It's somehow part of the story that excites me. There's something poetic about it. My interest in birds. It's never usually literal, but this was an interesting thing, that something about the consciousness of birds and our consciousness, that it could somehow play with that. So let's put it in artwork, because I never know. Again, it's this whole thing that I don't know what it is. But if I put it in an artwork, as some conscious thing, then maybe it'll tell me what it is. All right. So that's what I did. I started putting it in, and I just drew a bird, and I had this figure of the female form, very, very extremely crudely, what's the word, painted or drawn. And I started writing in it, and I was quite liking what was happening with the words, even though the words didn't necessarily, they were just quite explanatory of what was going on. There wasn't anything too sort of deep, I don't think, in what I was writing. Painted the bird, and then I painted the form, and then I thought what I'd do is get rid of the form. So I tried to erase the pencil marks of which, and what started happening is they started smudging. I mean, it's a very practical and technical thing that started happening. And I thought, oh yes, I used this graphite stick that is water soluble, so it's kind of moving around. But then, okay, maybe if it's water soluble, I'll just take water and just kind of see if I can move it around that way. And then it just became this sort of gray thing, and I thought it was just too unpleasantly gray, and this bird was starting to annoy me. It's just what happens when you do an artwork. You don't know where it's going. So then I'll just turn this around so you can see where it is now. So what I did was, in my irritation of it, I started painting around. I started taking white paint and just painting the form with white, so almost erasing it. And I took the bird away. I didn't like the bird at all. It started really annoying me. And I was left with this. So it was erased, but I just, yeah. And that's where it is at the moment. Like I have no. So this is what is interesting me at the moment is, I'm going to try and move it around. And this actually, I think I spoke about the other day. I'm just going to put this somewhere. Front door of the studio. I'll see if I can hold it in the frame. Okay, I'm sitting on the heater here. It's all very precarious. All right, well, I'll just hold it to see the point I'm making. Now, the point I wanted to make. Oh, what was the point I wanted to make? Yeah, what is the point I wanted to make? It's that whole process of never knowing, actually, of not knowing. It's a process of not knowing. Like, I don't know. Like, there's something about it that, now it's a painting, that intrigues me. The fact that I've had the form and then I've erased the form, but there's some kind of residual shadow. And it also resonates with this other work that this other series that I've been doing. And this is the latest one, which you've seen. I think you've seen it if you've been following the channel, let's call it, the channel, the Sid Sledge channel. You'll have seen that one. And it's kind of a monument to humans. And that provokes a lot of things for me, because it's like somehow about our folly and our hopefulness and our hopelessness and this weird kind of cusp of artificial intelligence that we kind of seem to be sitting on. You know, a little bit of the feeling we have as a species of, well, maybe we always have this kind of dooms, like humans often have that, I think, as a species, but it feels like it's, it feels a little kind of closer to that edge the doomsday clock and all of that. And I'm not a doomy sort of person. I approach everything with curiosity. Like, I'm really interested to know what that means, and what it evokes in us. And again, as an artist, much of what I do is not conscious, so I have to do things to see what is going on inside me. And then I think, well, if I do something like this work, it's talking to me. It's saying something that I must be on some level interested in, that I'm not prepared to allow myself to know that I'm interested in it on a super conscious level. So I've got to let it out in other ways, i.e. through the process of making things. I'm a maker of things. That's where I do my thinking. These hands, yeah, that's how I do my thinking. So this work here, all I can say about it at this stage is I liked the resonance, the contrast of the form being kind of jumping out, literally, this wounded form monument, to there being erased, to there being just a residual shadow with a little bit of writing coming through. So I don't know. I'm not I'm actually not sold on anything. I'm not entirely sold on that, and I'm not entirely sold on the that either. But the story is also the other thing to recognize. The story is unfolding. Sometimes it's not clear to you. This is actually how I framed this piece over here. I actually took that cardboard box and I really actually like this. Like, it's, for me, there's something quite tender about it. As a way of displaying it inside this cardboard box. So I'm quite happy with that. Like, that for me tells a story, and it kind of talks to this piece over here in terms of the colors, in terms of the subject matter. And this is just somehow part of that evolution. Maybe when I switch this on tomorrow, it'll have completely disappeared. Because its initial incarnation, I thought, was, that is what it is. That is what it should be. But you should always be open to the possibility that it's not what it is yet. And nothing ever is. Like, at some point you say, okay, this one is done, but the evolution, the trajectory of the whole story is going to keep changing. Yeah, I mean, that's the story. Let's make you more comfortable. How you doing there, boy? It's really quite interesting. So I've got the camera rolling at the moment, and I've just run out of things to say. Looking around my studio, I know it's interesting because when I first did this, I thought, I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to let the camera roll and capture me. But I just feel weird about that. I feel like I've got to talk. I've got to talk to you, right? I mean, it's actually rude. I feel like it's rude if I just have the camera rolling and I'm just indifferent to anything happening on the other side of the camera. It just doesn't seem very nice, does it? Does not seem nice. So as a result, I feel the need to talk, but I should experiment with just not talking. But this camera's not going to follow me around, so you can just be looking at that, which just, it's a printer, it's a roll of wire, it's a window. I feel like there's need to show and tell. It's got to be a show and tell, right? I've got to show you things, don't I? I'll read you a poem. How about that? Okay, so I wrote this poem a little while ago. What is this poem? So this poem, to give you a bit of context, there's a little boy who goes to our local shul. He's the son of the rabbi. And he was always, when I first saw him a few years ago, he was throwing airplanes in the sky, like, toy airplanes. He was obsessed. He was in the park every day doing it. And I remember talking to him, I said, you really like planes? He said, yeah. And he's kind of patched this thing together with tape, and it's really kind of falling apart, but he persists. And then the other day in shul, he had a hacky sack. He was throwing that up and catching and throwing that up and dropping it and all that. So I thought, I just loved that for some reason. So I wrote this. It's called Poem About Levi, because that's his name. Levi used to throw paper planes in the air, and even though they kept coming down, he kept at it. Today, I saw him in shul, and this time, It was a hacky sack that he let into the air. And it too always came back down to him. He nearly dropped his siddur, but all his training came in handy and he held on to it. But things that separate always seem to return. The bird leaving the earth always comes back. The earth itself is also returning to what it was separated from. The fish to the bird, the land to the sea. The universe is one big experiment in things returning to where they separated from. Things separate in time and return periodically, like ants to the dying earthworm, or magpies to the olive-filled olive tree. And they say, when you love someone, set them free. Is the universal law of the universe universal? If it is, then things can't die, only separate for a while. So that's the poem about Levi. And you can see in it my themes of really being interested in fish and birds separating, fifth day of creation, Genesis mythology. And when something separates, can it return? And things are always maybe just oscillating, separating, returning. Maybe things can never separate entirely is what I'm playing with there. So it's interesting then how poetry becomes a vehicle for asking questions. Always the same questions, always asking these questions. Even when I'm exploring something that seems not to be about that, it always comes back to being about that. When I say about that core thing that is driving me to have this creative impulse to make work, to ask these questions. What is it? What is the gestalt? What is lying underneath it? What is the thing that is separated in me, that is dying to return? What is that wound, that ancient wound that is compelling me to keep on this trajectory? Really interesting, that idea. Maybe some footage of Ojay, and then I'm going to call it, because I'm pulling teeth here. Look how he's looking at me. He's like, well, what is he doing? But isn't that beautiful? Isn't that a beautiful image right there? He's falling asleep. His eyes are closing. Okay, just in terms of, I have to let this go for 30 minutes. So again, I'm going to just see if I can just wander about without engaging, or if something comes up, I'll engage, but I'm going to just leave this running. Okay, this could be fun. This could be interesting. What I'm going to do is, I've got an old notebook. I'm obsessed with notebooks. So I've just randomly picked one up because it was sitting on my desk here, because I think I'm always in the process of tidying them up and organizing them. Well, I need to, the counterbalance on this thing is not great. Don't fall over. Let me just see if I can. How's that? Bit of an angle. But what I'll do is I'm actually going to go just page through it. I don't know if you can see anything. Let me actually do this. Take it out. Oh, there we go. So, sorry about the shadow, but I thought it'd be interesting just to go through it, because I have no idea what's in this notebook. These are just drawings. This is a friend of mine, Estelle. We were talking about Project Strawberry. Horses on the mind. I was going through a stage of making horse machines, turning my Chaos Evolver machine into a horse, which interestingly can happen. Maybe I'll come back to that at some point. Just always thinking, who was most big, goblin or orc? Interesting, it must have been a question that my son was asking a few when he was a little younger. 4 years ago now, unbelievable, 6 years old. No, he would have been 9, my God. All right, Ojay, what is it? You want to go outside? Come. Go see what's going on. Oh, you see, I put this painting here, so you have to move that out the way first. There you go. Go run amok. Okay. Don't know what I'm thinking here. My face in an ever-changing climate. What am I thinking there? It's so interesting. To-do lists. Yeah, just, this is my daughter, Ruth. Remember this? This was actually at a friend's house. She was just sketching. Then my son, birds, always the birds, see, always the birds. Holes, wounds, gestalt, maybe. Indra's web, I don't know, books, glasses, horses. See, I went through a horse phase. Definitely went through a horse phase. Don't know what that is. Just doodling, playing with ideas, seeing what comes. Being self-doubting doesn't hurt. It just makes you work harder. Well, that's interesting that I wrote that so many years ago. I think self-doubting is okay up to a point, and then you need to abandon it, possibly. Thinking about building horses, as you can see. Thinking, plan for hospice. Got 3 more minutes, so we'll just have to, what I'm thinking here. See, I was really getting into the idea of what I must really be wondering about how to do a horse. I like these sort of drawings. Very, just emergent. All plastics. Thinking. Oh, these are great notebooks. I don't know who that is. Playing with ink. Keeping the thinking going. More wild sketches. Preternatural, I wrote. Preternatural, I think it's something before it's natural. Before it's natural, what does that mean? Logos, what was my thinking here? I must have been reading something. Framing costs, $410. Shocking. Still thinking about horses. The horses. Preternatural transition to the real. You see, something before it becomes real. It's preternatural. Just keep going. It's interesting. Friend of mine. The similitude I wrote. There is similitude. Not sure why, but interesting drawings. 14th of June, 2019. It's about mitzvah card. Dearest Rafia. Oh, wow. Nice card. Thinking about horse. Sometimes the drawings are more interesting than the final product. Really interesting that. Ice skating. I must have been at an ice skating rink. Definitely not ice skating, if I could avoid it. Bondi Pavilion application. Yeah. Would not have enjoyed writing that explanation of your art practice. Oh, I would have hated writing that. I'm getting better at that now. Writing about what it is that I'm doing. I almost enjoy it now because I can I can at least articulate my motivations. Let's say, Justin Lovato art, visionary artist. I wrote. Don't know who that is. Now UPC. Yeah. Grids. Don't know who that is. 24th of June. We were heading off to Germany for a wedding. So I remember right here's my to-do list. Pack and send quote. Info to Berwick. Meds to Germany. Pay Berwick. Phone Bear. Check Hazelhurst. So interesting. My sister. That's my sister. I remember meeting her for coffee and sketching her. Remember all these things. It's 30 minutes, but let's just go through here. I think it's my friend Anthony. Bondi Pavilion. Writing an application. I remember that. Horse should be troubled by the mechanics of its motion. Love that idea, you see. Now that's a drawing that finally settled onto your teacher, is the idea that this horse is being troubled by its mechanical motion. I like that. That's an interesting idea. And that's the end of the notebook, and that's the end of the session.